The story is that, I have resisted reading Teresa of Avila for a very long time for a few reasons. One, because I'm a bit of a scrupulous person, and the idea of somebody telling me about stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, I thought that's really going to do my head in. And do I want to be the kind of person who's always thinking, I think now I'm in, now I think I'm in this, now I think I'm in that. So I did kind of resist her, which I'm sad about now that I've done some reading and research, because of course the saints are always a great gift to us. And actually I think I quite like her now, whereas I don't think I could have said that before. I tried reading her several times and just got totally irritated by the sort of self-deprecatory language and, I'm the worst of sinners, etc. But I've pushed through for you. Thanks. Can I have a timekeeper? Because I do have quite a bit of content and I want to make sure I don't go over. Oh, I don't know, how much have I got on the thing? Okay. Can you give me a flash at, 20? Yeah, all right. The pictures that I've put up here, I thought you would be interested in the one on the right, because that's actually a forensic reconstruction of her face. I don't think they did it the same way that they do in the movies, where they take the skull and they put all the plasticine on, because I'm pretty sure she's incorruptible. She's still using her skull at the moment. So I suppose they took it from computerised tomography or something like that to get an idea of her skull, and then So doesn't she look lovely? She looks like a very kindly sort of, She looks human in that one, I reckon. I thought I would start by, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about her life, then I'm going to talk about sort of 3 key themes of her spirituality, and then I thought you'd all be interested in the interior castle. So we've got the 7 mansions of the interior castle. Now, those who are in MGLs will recognise this as being nearly wholly stolen from the MGL formation teaching. Thank you. I think it needs to be tightened there. Thank you. Thank you. So that's my goal. We'll see how we go. I thought I'd start, though, with the 16th century. This is not all of the saints and Reformation leaders happening in the 16th century, but there was a hell of a lot going on. You probably can't see too well, but there's Teresa of Avila in the middle there in the light, Council of Trent down the bottom. Yeah. Protestant Catholic. The Catholics in green, Protestants in red. So there's a lot going on in the 16th century, a lot of turmoil for the church, a lot that we have to be grateful for when you look at the saints. That this is not even all of them, but it's all I could fit on my Canva. There was a lot happening. Henry VIII and all the English Protestantism, Martin Luther, etc. So this is just to give you an idea of what a gift it was at that time in the life of the church for Teresa's life to blossom in the way that it did. Okay, here she is. So she was born in 1515 in Avila, I don't know how to say it, I'm not Spanish in any way, a walled city of Spain. At about 20 years of age, she joined the convent of the Incarnation in Avila. Now, the Carmelite convents in those days were quite different to the Reformed Carmelite convents that we probably are more familiar with. You could go in, if you were a rich person, you could enter the convent, you could bring your servants with you, you could continue to hold court in a sense with your social circle, and you'd still do all of the prayers of the church, etc., but it was a very different kind of, I guess, a different kind of social construct than what we think of today when we think of a Carmelite. And that's thanks to Teresa. She, in her life, you can read that she really battled with this idea of a call to the convent, but in the end, she gave into it in a sort of almost a kind of hedging my bets sort of way. You know, this is probably the surest way that I can get to heaven is to go into a convent. So she did that at 20. She was very sickly, I think all through her life, but a specific episode when she was young was in 1538. She got very sick. She almost died, although in some of the writing they make it sound as though they were ready to bury her. So she was very close. While recuperating, she read a book which inspired her to begin meditating. And it's kind of the crux of Teresa's life, but she doesn't kind of get to it until age 40. So she feels a drawing to meditation, and you kind of sort of think, she's in a convent, what else is she going to be doing? Of course she's going to be meditating, but actually there was enough in the life of the convent that you could avoid it if you wanted to, and part of her reform was bringing that out into the open. So at age 40, she had a conversion experience, and that was around Jesus crucified, an image of Jesus crucified. I think it was a statue that inspired in her a heartfelt response. And she fell down in tears before the statue, and she wept and told the Lord that she repented for not giving him her love, and she sort of demanded of him that he do something with her. And she says that from that point, her prayer improved and her relationship with Christ became deeper. Where have I got to? Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, I'm talking more than I have written, so I'm getting lost. From the experience of recollection, she was brought to the prayer of quiet, and then to infused contemplation, and then into greater favours from the Lord. So by greater favours, they're referring to things that will come through in the interior castle. But she did have quite a few physical sort of signs of grace, such as levitation. She was known to levitate. They would put, stones on her habit, etc. From all that I've read, she found it a bit annoying. She was monitored by the Spanish Inquisition. I don't know if you knew that. One of her first books, The Life of Teresa of Jesus, was held by the Spanish Inquisition for quite some time. So, of course, you know what it's like when you get that kind of negative press. Everybody wants to read it, so people would have their secret copies of The Life of Teresa of Jesus. Anyway, she was eventually acquitted in the sense that they found nothing wrong with her writings and her way of life. But ironically, that interaction helped to preserve her legacy because they had all of the records of her writing and her life. In 1567, at age 52, she started the Discalced Carmelites. So it did take her a while. 1538 she joined. 1567 she began the reform. So that kind of took the order back to their original charism of poverty and prayer. And by the time of her death in 1582, she'd founded 14 new convents of the Discalced Carmelites. She was canonised in 1622, so, fairly quick in church terms. And then she was made the first female doctor of the church in 1970. So that's pretty cool. That's something to aspire to. Kate, Fiona, next female doctors of the church. this is just her major works are these three: The Life of Teresa of Jesus, The Way of Perfection, and The Interior Castle. And then there are minor works that include her letters, meditations, poetry, etc. Let's talk about her spirituality. Teresa is astoundingly Christ-centred. So I related so much to this in terms of our community. In our community, it's all about relationship with Jesus, isn't it? That relationship with Jesus and understanding yourself loved by God is the beginning of everything, beginning of openness, beginning of the baptism in the Holy Spirit, etc. So Teresa too, and every reformer, I'm absolutely sure of it, her prayer was Christ-centred. The only way to God is through the sacred humanity of Jesus. Everyone should be focused on him. And if we lose sight of Jesus, we're in trouble. In other words, this is a relational journey. This is not an ideology or a set of rules. This is a relational journey. And moving from non-relational to relational is what set the fire in her heart to reform the Carmelites. So there's so much power in opening ourselves up to deep relationship with Christ. Teresa's prayer is described as effective in the sense that it's a response to the love that we have received from the Lord. So one of her famous quotes is, "The important thing is not to think much, but to love much." You can see as why I had trouble with that. I think thinking is a beautiful thing and has a value. But what she's saying is that if we're always in our head and not relating to God, then there's something wrong. It's not going to be as fruitful a relationship. I like to think and love. That's my goal. The primary principle: do whatever best stirs you to love. And I've heard that a couple of times, do whatever best stirs you to love. You can think about it in terms of her prayer life. I'm going to do what helps me to get into touch with this loving relationship. But you can also think of it as do whatever makes you a loving person. So in other words, if the fruit of your deep prayer life is not seen in the way that you love others, then there's something wrong. So she's not just talking about, I'm going to have this great prayer life. She's saying if it doesn't expand out to the world, then it's time to go and see your spiritual director and get that sorted out. Teresa over and over and over and over again emphasises the importance of humility and self-knowledge as two sort of sides to the same coin. She says self-knowledge is crucial for spiritual growth. It allows us to understand our faults and rely more fully on God's grace. And she encapsulates it beautifully when she says, prayer is knowing who you are and knowing who God is. So I can remember when I was a young Christian, we used to read a lot of these sorts of saints' books. In fact, Teresa of Lisieux and the Little Flowers of St. Francis were kind of our banter. We loved all that sort of stuff. And we'd talk about self-knowledge. You know, bear in mind that I would have been like 17, 16, so we talk about how important self-knowledge was. Now I think I can sort of see what she's talking about a lot more. Understanding yourself, being honest with your own motivations, bringing your reality into the light rather than playing a part or trying to be holier than you are is the gateway for prayer, crucial for spiritual growth. I can pretend in front of God as long as I like, but until I say, oh, actually, I have a problem here and here, and I need your help, and I can see that you love me and you're good, that's the point at which we break ourselves open. How are we going? We're going all right? Good. I just want to go, I've actually got to the interior castle, so we're not doing too bad. But I did just want to go back to, we mentioned something before called the prayer of quiet. And we'll talk about that a little bit in the interior castle. But I have a theory that I've not said to anyone, but my theory is that charismatic praise brings us into the prayer of quiet. I think that's true. I'll do a thesis on it one day, God knows. All right, let's have a look at the interior castle, which is her most well-known book. And often we go straight to first mansion, second mansion, third mansion, but before those, there's this really superbly beautiful introduction to the castle where she talks about how she was inspired to write this. She says, I thought of the soul as resembling a castle formed of a single diamond. If we reflect, sisters, she's talking to her nuns here, if we reflect, sisters, we shall see that the soul of the just person is but a paradise in which God tells us he takes his delight. So it's so right from the beginning, the reason all of this is happening is because God sees us as magnificently beautiful. What do you imagine must that dwelling be in which a king so mighty, so wise and so pure, containing in himself all good, can delight to rest? I found that magnificent. And it sort of made me think about, when we start with God's love in the Life in the Spirit seminars, if we don't understand that God looks at us and thinks we are magnificent, then it can be tricky to move forward. Let's go to the first mansion. So these notes are, pretty sparse, but I would encourage you to go and read the mansions and to read about the mansions. So we're just going to do a very quick tour through. In the first mansion, we experience the call of the Lord and are trying to respond. So I think we can all say that we have experienced that. The soul is still absorbed in possessions, creature comforts, worldly affairs and honours, etc., and giving in easily to the temptations of the world, the flesh and the devil. So in other words, we've heard it, but we're perhaps on the fence, we're still really influenced by these negative things. So to move on, self-knowledge is crucial in order to learn humility. In the second mansion, I love this picture. I think it's beautiful, and I can't remember where it comes from. I'll find out. In the second mansion, we're starting to develop a personal relationship with the Lord, and we're entering seriously into the spiritual battle. So it's not just a nice weekend that we went to, but we're taking things seriously and we're moving deeper into relationship with the Lord. There is a danger here that we will want the Lord to do our will. But the challenge is to be self-disciplined and learn the importance of self-denial to overcome the power of the flesh and break with the world. So what that danger sort of refers to, if you're young in the spirit and you're thinking, okay, God's going to give me this if I be a good Christian. A transactional kind of idea of who God is and what he can provide for you in a sort of transactional way, which is not Teresa's way at all. In the third mansion, this is a state of greater peace, a carefully ordered and well-disciplined life. So I think there's recognition for us here too. This is where the Lord allows... So in that first sentence, it's kind of saying, okay, it's gone deeper and we are building our life around this relationship and we're ordering our life to make sure that this relationship is growing. So when we get to that point, there is a greater sense of peace, there is a greater sense of order and well-discipline, but it also can be a time where the Lord allows much testing to occur. And this is to detach us and teach us humility, so that we understand that perfection consists not in consolations, but in the increase of love. There's a lot there. Hands up if you've been tested ever. You know, we've all been there, I guess, is the thing. But recognising that those human, and often they're very kind of normal testings, have something to teach us. Teach us humility. Oh, actually, I can't handle that, and I thought I could. Or detach us from seeking God's gifts rather than God's self. And then you can be in this mansion for a long time, and the warning that one of the sisters wrote here is you can get stuck in this state. So, interesting. Let's have a look at the fourth. So in the fourth mansion, we move from meditation to contemplation into the prayer of recollection, and this is a supernatural action of God. So the assumption there kind of is that your prayer until now has been all meditation. What she tends to mean by meditation is that you're doing all the work. 20 minutes? Good. You're doing all the work. So you're engaging with Lectio Divina and all of those different things that we can use to draw us into relationship with God, but it's you working to recollect yourself and working to come closer. But at this point in the fourth mansion, we're moving to contemplation, prayer of recollection. And she points out very clearly that this is God's work. I had to give a talk on prayer at, what's it called? Explosion. And we were talking about a fire. If you're lighting a fire, you put the sticks together, you put all the sticks together and the kindling, etc. This is your meditation. You're doing all of these things to make a fire happen, but God lights the fire. And that's what Teresa's talking about, that God's grace takes you into infused contemplation. We have a bit of a warning. Even though we're in the fourth mansion, we're still babies in the spiritual life here. And if we give up prayer at this stage, we are in trouble, because we become prey for the enemy, who will attack us more viciously here than in the lower states. And he does that because we're already shining the love of God. We're already attractive to others. We're already working in the kingdom. If at this point we stop prayer, that can be a great victory for the evil one, because if he can bring us down while other people are appreciating the things that God does through us, that can harm the kingdom. And, we've seen that. Since those in this state attract others and do the enemy much harm, he highly prizes destroying this person. So if you get nothing out of this talk, Teresa said, be determinedly determined. How do you say it? Determinedly determined. So if you have a prayer life, if you don't have a prayer life, get a prayer life. If you have a prayer life and you sometimes think, it doesn't matter if I don't spend that time with the Lord each day, can I encourage you that would be a bad thing. Be determinedly determined to continue your prayer life. Okay, 5th, 6th, 7th, we're going to make it. In the 5th mansion, I don't know what's happened to my slide, because there's 2 on mine. Oh, there we go. So in the fifth mention, she starts talking about sort of things that are maybe a little obscure to us. Here the soul experiences the prayer of union, a state in which the soul is completely withdrawn from the senses and is in removed union with the Creator. Now, she's obviously not talking about all the time. You don't live in a state of the prayer of union, but you may be taken there during a prayer time. And maybe we could think of it as comparable to being slain in the Spirit, maybe. I don't know. Sisters, am I being a heretic? No, Kate's saying no, it's nothing like that. Kate's there all the time. The soul is taught to recognise truth and goodness when it encounters it, and the appetite is refined to crave those things exclusively. So even though the whole journey has been about deepening in relationship, in this fifth mansion something even deeper and more beautiful is happening, and you are drawing away from anything that doesn't draw you towards God. Let's see what the sixth. You can't see that, can you? Okay, I'm going to put them all up. In the sixth mansion, here the soul really begins to ache with desire for her Creator and leave behind the world and its sad inconsideration of its God. Isn't that a lovely way to say it? The soul is wounded whenever she sees people out of communion with Him and aches to be absorbed in worship all the time. She also recognises more and more how imperfectly she is able to serve Him, and this wounds her deeply as well. Teresa urges the one experiencing this state still to strive to serve and improve the whole of her life in order to pass through this final trial, improved by it. So again, we're being drawn in, we're being drawn closer and closer to communion with God, and we're beginning to have profound distaste for the world. And what was that phrase that Father Eden used this morning? We have a gut-churning experience when we see people who are not moving in communion with God. The seventh and final mansion. The soul wishes for infinite life so that she can serve her God forever, a spiritual marriage. She switches to seeing suffering on earth as a pleasure. So I think none of us are there yet. Our own suffering is trifling when compared to the suffering of Christ for us. The soul is so absorbed in the beauty of God that she looks eagerly for ways to serve Him, any work that she can do, and secret ways of loving Him with her actions. So I think the heart of this seventh mansion is that concept of a spiritual marriage. A union has happened that is irreversible, and that person has opened up and surrendered completely to God's work in their life. One last thing, if I can, is if I can share this, it's my absolute favourite prayer of Teresa of Avila. And this prayer was written in handwriting in her breviary. So you won't find it in any of her books, but it is, of course, strongly associated with her. And over the last few years, this has become one of my deepest, most heartfelt prayers. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things are passing away. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God alone suffices.